This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Sec Units? This is Steven, your host with Fantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friends, Josh and Jake, with me, and we're talking about Murderbot after the Murderbot Diaries. After long last, I've been promising to read these for a while. The book has been in my backdrop for quite a while, and I've been lying to viewers for long enough, and we finally have read the first four novellas by Martha Wells.
Yeah, I read the first one probably like 6 months, somewhere between 6 months and 10 months ago. So it was fun to dive back in. I read the 2 through 4 like back to back to back this past month, and that was really fun.
Nice. Yeah, I'm super. I don't remember you saying that that you had read it long ago, but yeah, this has been something I've wanted to dive in for a while. I feel like this is one of those where I don't know if it's just big on YouTube or if it's like big in general, Like um I feel like I see it talked about a fair amount, but it's not like I don't feel like I see it in like traditional media very often. So anyway, but I'm glad we got to it. I'm glad we're doing a review of it, and I'm glad that I enjoyed it. Spoiler for my enjoyment level.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, spoiler, way more than I thought I would. I thought it was going to be kind of like surface level enjoyment, but there's a lot more to it than I would have expected, than I did expect going in.
Yeah, we did this for Fantology Book Club in March. And so I blitzed through the first four. And I also read six, which takes place before five, but was actually written after five, obviously. So a little confusing there. And I've started on to book five. So we're only going to cover the first four novellas, no spoilers past then, mostly because we can't spoil them too much, even. There are seven now, and five is like a full-length novel. I think seven is kind of long as well. Anyway, so there's more, and we'll keep on going because I think we all like them, and we'll have to do a 5, 6, 7 review. But yeah, I mean, my review is positive. I think there are some things that maybe were not didn't land quite as well, but overall, like they're very solid books. And like you were saying, Jake, like there's also kind of this interesting theme of humanity and what it is to be a human, and how Murderbot fits in to with the rest of humanity, and like is it more human than the other humans? Sometimes you wonder. So I thought that was kind of an interesting backdrop to the series so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the format are novellas so far, and so you don't have a ton of page count to like do stuff with it, but I think they do a really good, or Martha does a really good job of like exploring that as much as you can within those bounds. And maybe again the name being Murderbot and the fact that they're novellas, like I was expecting like a fun but more meaningless like space adventure, but it's a lot more thought provoking, like you're saying, and yeah, I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is one of those situations where uh the having a first person narrative really helps with it because you
Mm.
can get a little bit more into the head of the protagonist murderbot, and and you can view the world through his kind of somewhat strange eyes. But it also, the other thing that was really impressive with that was that it seemed like she had Murderbot's voice down pretty much from the get-go, and
Yeah.
it gets refined, but it's one of those situations where you could tell that she had a vision for this character and really kind of honed that in, and has done a really good job with keeping that
Mhm.
consistent.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, how far apart did these come out? Like, there's like at least a year in between them, right?
I think they were coming out between 2017 and 19. They're pretty, we can fact check that on Wikipedia, but they
Yeah.
were within a course of like 2 years, and then the other three have come out since then. So,
Mm.
you know, fairly close together, and they're only like 3 to 4 hour audiobooks, like 100 pages or so, like you're saying, Jake. So pretty bite-sized. But yeah, to what Josh, to your point there, right from book one, you get the character, you get the themes defined, and then they just get, you go deeper and deeper from there. But I agree that it's a consistent character, and she obviously knew what she was wanting to do right from the beginning, and has, I think, done a really good job.
Yeah. And yeah, and just again, like there's so much quality content within like this short amount of number of pages or hours length where
Yeah,
like
not
it's a
many
full,
wasted pages, or
yeah,
if at all. Yeah.
yeah. And I could see, I guess I could see someone getting a little feeling it's repetitive, the story structure, if you're reading these back to back, because they are their own distinct stories. So you have like beginning, middle, end of each of them, and they are shorter. So, like we read the first four, and like you said, 3 or 4 hours each. That's like 16 hours max. And that's not very long for most sci-fi fantasy, books. And you get those 4 arcs throughout. But I'm just still super impressed with the amount of character uh growth you do see. Like it feels very natural, and there's not like these huge moments of okay, there's the growth or no growth at all. Like it's a very natural progression, and it just makes the main character especially feel like really like real. And again, Josh, I think part of that is because you are in their head, which again, I feel like so many things on paper here are indicators of books of like
Stuff
types
you
of,
stuff you
yeah,
find cringy type thing.
not cringy, but like it would like not necessarily be like a red flag or a deal breaker, but like generally like just the title alone, Murderbot, and then it's first person. It just feels like it's going to be this like trying to be edgy but funny, and like not really a lot there. Um, but and those are my own biases obviously coming through. But again,
Mhm.
I just really try. I want people who have not given this series a chance to uh, don't worry. It's super high quality.
Nice. I think one of my issues that you touched on in there is the repetitive nature of it. And I think that's one of my criticisms as well. Like you said, I think it wouldn't be as big of an issue if you weren't binging it like I did. Um, but the kind of repetitive nature of like Murderbot meets a group of, and I guess we might start talking about spoilers-ish now, but like Murderbot meets a
Yeah,
group of,
let's say
yeah,
we'll start on spoilers. So
yeah.
okay, that's happening now.
Okay, so Murderbot meets a group of humans, and then Murderbot goes on an adventure with said group of humans. Murderbot kind of saves the day in some way with that group of humans, and then
While
Murderbot,
discovering more
well, just
about, yeah,
a potential larger conflict that hopefully materializes, but we don't know a ton about, and usually makes at least one new sidekick friend along the way. And that's kind of uh it's a good formula, but it did seem a little bit repetitive, which is fine. But I don't know. Yeah, that's I think one of my maybe things that I didn't love as much about it.
yeah. I feel like that's just you just have to have the context going in that these are novellas, and I feel like that should um once you like if you understand that, I don't think that you can really hold that against it. It's like um what is the first uh Witcher book? Sword of Destiny
Sword of
or The
Destiny is the
Last
second
Wish.
one. The Last
But
Wish is the
but
first one. Yeah.
but they're a collection of short stories, and I feel like if these were bundled together in one book as a collection of short stories, you know what I mean? I don't think people would be like,
Hmm.
"Oh, it's too repetitive." It'd be like, "Okay, I'm reading these shorter stories together." But not
Yeah,
not to
Yeah.
discount what you're saying, but I feel like um if like that's really it's less of a criticism of the work as much as just the format it's in. But
yeah, it's definitely more of a serialized format, and it's kind of like Dresden. Like you could say a similar thing about Dresden. Like Dresden finds a case, flirts with the
yeah,
girl, solves the case, finds something out about the underworld. Similar thing, but yeah,
Jake
just
acting like he knows Dresden after reading 2 books.
hey, they were repetitive. The two repeated.
Oh
All you
my
need is
gosh.
2 for a series, right? I don't know. Ask a math major.
It seems like a Barata serum video or whatever that
Yeah.
channel is. Yeah.
I mean, I see your point, Josh, but it didn't bother me, and I really think this format of doing novellas was really worked for me. I'm not a
Yeah.
big shorter format. Like I usually like the big chunky book, and I've read a lot of those books. And honestly, when someone tells me, novella, I think, okay, that's nice, but it's not going to be as I'm not going to enjoy it as much because it's not long enough. But I didn't have that problem at all, and I liked how within the 4, and the reason why I chose these 4 to review together is because I think you get a really nice complete arc with the whole kind of Gray Chris adventures, Gray Chris conflict through these 4. I don't know if that really continues much going forward. I guess we'll see when we read the next few. But I think each one of them, introduced a new conflict, introduced some new characters, tied it up. Like each one of these could have been expanded and made full-on books, and there's enough content there where they have all complete stories. And yeah, like I see what you mean about the somewhat repetitive formulaic nature of them, but I think it works for this because they are so short and because each one of them does kind of like build off of each other and throw in a few more things. And it's not like we're starting over after each novella. Murderbot is leveled up a bit and advanced with its quest to become more human. Or I mean, I guess we can talk about that if it is trying to become more human or not. But I think that this, from the novellas that I've read, like this is a real masterclass of putting together a set of novellas that work.
Yeah, I agree. I similar thoughts. I generally like lean towards the longer books and media in general because like if it's good, I want it to be good for
Yeah.
as long as possible. I want
Right.
that enjoyment to
Got to
continue.
maximize that.
Um, um, I can't remember if I told you guys this, but I had to do a hot take at work as like a intro question, like a get to know you
Yeah.
question. And I realized all my hot takes are basically just around science fiction and fantasy, so I didn't really know what to say. But the one I did throw out was it annoys me when people will say like that movie was good, but it was 3 hours, and it was like, well, was it good for the whole 3 hours? Then why are you complaining? Like you got
It's
to
such a
have three
bad
hours.
take.
No, that's a great take. You could, if you were saying the movie like was boring for parts and like it only had 2 hours of excitement, then you say, okay, it should have been 2 hours. But if it's entertaining for the full 3 hours, like
Is this
why?
some recency from like Dune reviews that
No, I remember
Probably.
some
Jake
friend
having
or
this take
family
with
member?
Wheel
I
of
mean,
Time.
I've
I
had this
remember.
take for everything.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
it's like,
No,
oh, do I want to?
yeah, I agree with this take. I'm 100% on board with this take.
I just disagree, but that's okay. We don't have to
Well,
get into it.
in spite of me having this take, which would steer me away from things like novellas as much, like just like Steven, like this surprised me in how much I liked it, and I found myself liking the format because it was like I said, I read the first one a while ago, but the second through fourth like in a row, and it was kind of fun because it had similar beats where it's like, okay, getting to know the new situation, the layout, you start to see the plot and conflict build a little bit. um like there's this exploratory nature in the beginning, and then a lot of action, and then like an interesting like piece of information at the end. And it was done so well where it didn't feel just cookie cutter, but it felt like I was watching like I don't know, something like Fringe or Psych or something like that. You know what I mean? Where it's like, what is
Definitely
the
an hour long. This is an hour
yeah,
long
yeah,
fight. It's not a short half-hour thing. It's an
yeah,
hour-long adventure each one.
yeah, exactly. And it made me think like, man, I could do this. Like this is how like I've watched TV like this. And again, generally I like the TV that's like more
Yeah.
expansive and it feels more like a continuous thing. But
And
like it was,
they're making a series.
yeah, and they are. And
Speaking,
I think
so yeah.
it would do really well as a series. I think you could do each one of these stories in an hour-ish pretty well.
Yeah. I haven't
But
really tuned
anyways,
into any of the I kind of vaguely remember the casting. I think like is Alexander Skarsgård.
One of the
Eh,
Skarsgård.
yeah,
Yeah.
He was attached at one point. I have the Wikipedia page up. Oh no, I have
Yeah.
it for the author, but yeah,
I guess I
anyways.
got to tune in now that I'm a fan of the series and see what we're getting here for this adaptation.
It made me, I don't know if we want to move the this episode in this direction. This might be for a future episode, but it made me
Yeah, let's just
kind of
tease some future thoughts for the
yeah.
TV show episode.
Oh well, no, this is I'm pivoting back to like the long form versus short form.
Oh, okay. No,
Um,
that's good because I had one more comment that I think is funny for that. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Another
go ahead.
another tease for a potential future debate episode. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she loves reading fan fiction online. Like that is her form of content, which is like antithetical to almost everything I enjoy. And but I was like,
It's like
well,
it's
send
everything
me
I stand for.
almost. In my mind, and prove me wrong, guys. In my mind, if fan fiction were really good, like genuinely good writing, like those people would be writing their own works and
No,
being
I think
published.
it's wrong.
Oh
I think that's
man,
a
dude,
bad. I
people
think
are
that's a
gonna
Anyways,
come
terrible
after.
take.
People
Yeah,
are
yeah,
coming
come after
after
me.
you.
Come after
Such
me.
a bad
That,
take.
that
You're
isn't
getting
even
you're getting F you, Jake comments
yeah,
for
get
that
it, get
take.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can take it. That's fine. But I was open. I was open to have my mind changed. So I asked her. I was like, "Send me your favorite fan fiction. I'll read it and like, try to change my mind." And she was like, "Okay, I'll send you this one. It's so great. It's like 500,000 words, or I don't know how many, but it was like a lot of words." And I was like,
Dang.
"Okay." And then she went off on this uh not rant because that sounds too negative, but she went off saying like she hates it when fan fiction or books in general are short because it's an indication of they're not good. And I had just finished this series and I was like, I don't like that's not true. You can have really good content that is like short and you can have really good content that is long. I don't think length is an indicator of whether it is good or not.
Size does not matter. It's what you do with the size.
The length, yes. What do you do with the length? And
Okay.
if you're talking physical books, girth as well. But yeah, anyways, I think that could be an interesting discussion for a later episode of like does one form inherently lend itself to having higher quality content
Yeah.
than the other?
All right.
Anyways.
Before we get too far down the line
Yeah,
with
what
our
was your
Silicon Valley middle
what
out
were you
theory
gonna
here.
say though?
Yeah. So yeah, so we need to go back to we're gonna date ourselves here, but you all remember the hot crazy graph video, right? Like
Yeah.
back in the day. That's got to be like 15 years old now. But we need a
Yeah,
similar
definitely
video
canceled,
of
but we'll keep going it.
yeah, right. Yeah, probably canceled. But
That
we
was a How I Met Your Mother gag.
was it? I thought it was just
It
on.
wasn't there.
They
There's a
used it
professor
on
that did it,
there.
but they used it in
Yeah.
How I Met Your Mother. I think that's what like
I
popularized
just
it.
remember Mr. Strom back in high school math doing some lesson regarding that somehow.
By the way, we're gonna get Strom canceled.
Listeners are really interested in that in our high
In our
school
high school.
lore.
School
Yeah.
math.
Anyway, we need a similar video with x-axis is length,
Quality.
y-axis is quality or something, and like
Yeah.
divide it up into some quadrants, put different books in different quadrants.
Yeah,
And
that would be really
give
good.
give like funny names to different areas of the graph.
Let's
That could be good.
let's get some screen sharing like someone live drawing it for that as well. That'd be high quality YouTube content, I think,
Very good.
for the YouTube
Very
side.
good. That
Anyways.
actually could be done. If we could pull that off and make it a seamless video, that could be funny stuff. So
Yeah.
okay,
that'd
we'll
be really
consider
good.
that one. All right, let's get back to Murderbot. So which of the four novellas was your favorites? Or was your favorite? Choose one.
Dude, that's tough. Honestly, they're all so close for me. But I think just for the sake of this, I'll just go with number one.
Yeah.
I think it was delightful to get to know Murderbot. And while I enjoyed, while I totally stand by my previous comment that she did really good with keeping his voice consistent and everything I said. I think that introduction to Murderbot and getting to know him and getting like to know this like character that's I've built up somewhat in my head just from hearing people talk about him and then have him live up to the hype. I think was really great for me. And so I think for that reason, the first one was my favorite.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think the first one also could be a one and done adventure. Like it has such a complete beginning, middle, end, and it's not reliant on any of the like any other context, which I think can be a good indicator of like how good something is. But it also, I might just be biased because it first introduced us to the character, and the, like you were saying, like the humanity within the character. But yeah, but are they human? But I really enjoyed 2 and 3 as well. 4 was good, but I feel like um 2 and 3 I really liked getting to know Art and Mickey. Like I think having that additional like getting to know other bot minds, and then like exploring that, where like Murderbot has uh like a organic brain, right, in conjunction with their artificial intelligence. But Art and Mickey were fully artificial, if I'm remembering right, because Art was just the ship AI and Mickey was like this, I imagine, is like a dog
Yeah,
drone thing, like a police like Boston
Well,
Dynamics thing.
if I remember right, Murderbot does kind of like classify different levels of robots, and I think they're like constructs or something to the effect
Yeah.
of, yeah, they're like fully mechanical.
Yeah, and so I assumed a lot of the humanity within Murderbot after reading the first one was due to basically being a cyborg more than a robot, you know.
Mm.
But that's why I really like 2 and 3 as well, as you get to know these other like bots, and you see like the relationship between Mickey and their owner. I can't remember the owner's name.
I don't remember either. It's kind of
But
like
like
alternate universe. Mensa was the owner.
basically, yeah, and you get to see like, oh, she really cared for Mickey, and Mickey really cared for her. And then in the second one, you also, aside from Art, you also get the comfort bot, right?
Yeah.
That was like, it had its governor module and everything, but it was still like you saw like that like
The comfort
personal
bot that was owned by, don't remember the name, but the villain.
the villain, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but you saw its own like volition within there, you know. Anyways, it's really well done. But I'd say book one. What about you, Steven?
I'm gonna go ahead and give a full-on ranking of the four. But it is difficult
I
because
bet,
I think
yeah, yeah.
each one of them have, highs and lows. So I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1, 4 is
Three,
my
two, one,
ranking.
4.
Yeah.
Okay. What made you rank 3 the highest?
2 and 3, I was really debating, going back and forth. 3, I think, has the best action in
Mhm.
the series, and like pretty exciting and well done action. And I really liked those parts, and I liked that Murderbot didn't just defeat the combat bots because it's smarter, like some hand wavy reason. Like basically it was just able to knock out one of them by surprise and then just kind of get around the rest and escape, and had to deal with the humans who were evil. And then
Mhm.
also I think the Mickey dynamic, like that really added
Was
a lot to the whole series of like this robot who chooses to go against the order of its owner in order to like save the work to save its friends. And is this human or is this a robot, or like what is the difference? It adds a lot to the whole discussion of like humanity in the series.
Yeah, and I liked how it was like a reflection of um what Murderbots and Dr. Mensa's relationship could be as well. Like I think that was
Mm-hmm.
like that is a key moment for Murderbot and like deciding, okay, I can go back to Dr. Mensa, you know.
Yeah, good point. Because I think Murderbot was really worried about, like, it did not want to be a pet of
Yeah.
Mensa, and it saw Mickey as basically a pet. And then maybe things kind of changed at the end when it realized that it was like it could think for itself enough, and it realized that its owner allowed it to
Yeah.
make that decision. So
Yeah.
there was some, yeah, on both sides. It kind of paved the way, yeah, for Murderbot to go back. I agree. It's a good point.
Why did you rank number 4 last?
Well, let me talk about number two. Number two was
Okay.
real
Okay.
close. Yeah. And I think number two had my favorite moments. I really love the humor of Art and Murderbot
Mhm.
interacting together. The moments where they were like trying to figure out how to act like a human and how Murderbot could infiltrate this, the other
Yeah.
group of scientists. And it's like, okay, what is this that they're doing here? Like, oh, I guess it's just, they're just being a human and you need to sit like this or stand in this way and, kind of move around so you don't look, too weird and all these little things that they're trying to figure out about being human. I think that also adds to some of the discussion as well. I do think the end of the second book was a little lackluster. Like they just kind of, and it didn't connect quite as much with the whole mining facility leader and the other scientists. Like there was no big connection back to the preservation team and all that. So
Yeah, it was
that
more
was,
her
yeah,
or Murderbot exploring the tunnels, right? That led
right,
into book three. And that
right,
was their reason for being on the planet, but not the conflict on that planet.
yeah. So otherwise, the first half of book two, I liked probably the best out of the whole series. And
I
then
loved
yeah, go ahead.
I loved Art's like manipulation and like just I don't know. I was imagining like a more well-adjusted what's the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? You guys have read that, right? Or at least seen the movie?
I read the
More
book, but it was like years ago.
I can't remember. I want to say like Morty or something, but it's like a super depressed robot. And I feel like Art was like a more well-adjusted version of that, but still like kind of like the way it was manipulating a murder bot to like, well, you have to be on here. And then it was like, explain to me why this TV show is good, Like I want to be in on this.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
really
yeah.
great.
And then what did I say? Four? No, I said
Did one
one
then
and then
four.
four. Yeah. Four, I mean, none of them were bad. Four just wasn't quite as interesting. I think the whole thing was I don't, it was just like nonstop and there wasn't quite as much of like interesting theme to dig
Mm-hmm.
in on, like I mentioned in two and three. And I mean, I liked going back and seeing Mensa and the rest of the crew, and that was really kind of what I mean gave me a positive review of the book in general. I thought the ending was exciting with the virus and the way they were able to contain the virus and send it off on the shuttle and everything. But ultimately, like I don't know, there weren't any huge twists, and it was just kind of fairly straightforward of we're gonna go rescue Dr. Mensa, and we have indeed rescued her.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think any of them were bad. And I think four strengths were more in terms of the overarching plot. Like it did a really good job of connecting things back to the first book and Dr. Mensa, and you get a lot of um not that everything's resolved, but there's more resolution in terms of Gray Chris and like
Mhm.
that plot line. But I think you're right. The themes weren't as strong and it didn't make you think about things as much as the other three did. Um
Yeah,
yeah.
so it does a good job of kind of tying a bow around a fairly complete story from all
Mhm.
four novellas, but like just looking at the last 25% of the story on its own, I think it's stronger if you consider it part of the whole rather than like a novella on its own, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely a sequel story. And so I think in terms of ranking them individually, it,
Mhm.
it suffers a bit in the ranking for that. But the story itself was really well done and a good continuation. Josh, we just got your first one. What's your last one? Or what's your
No,
full ranking?
I don't know if can give a full ranking. I think generally, I think I go one, and then uh, it might just go one, two, three, four. Honestly, I really not
Just
that I
better and better, or worse and worse.
no. Well,
That is what it kind of sounds like, but that
it
it's
is
by
kind
no
of what it
means.
sounds like, but I don't want to say it like that because that's not really how I feel. But
Yeah.
I
Sure.
think number one, just by virtue of the of getting introduced to Murderbot. Number two, I really liked Art. Um, and then number and then I don't know, 3 and 4 might be reverse for me. I might like 4 more than 3, but
Mm.
maybe not. I don't know. It's
I
tough, but
think
yeah.
I'm 1, 3, 2, 4.
One,
Things
three.
I really liked about 1 is there's more of a mystery going on. Like you don't know what is like you don't know what's happening on the planet. You don't know, like, for a moment you think you think there's like this insidious like political plot due to Dr. Mensa's
Mm,
station, but then you find out it's really just this like capitalistic greed
Mm-hmm.
motivation for everything. And I think that mystery was done well, and I feel like it felt more intense because you're still being introduced to the world, like with those hacked sec units that they had to fight for a minute, and then they have to figure out this hostage arrangement. I think it was more of a slow burn, but it's probably like the difference between Alien versus Aliens. Like the first one is slower and more, a little more intense. Not that this is anything like that at all. Whereas Aliens is more like an action movie, and I feel like that's how like 3 and 2 were more like the action was more in your face. Not in a bad way, but I liked 1 more for that reason. Um, which one was the one where it starts out and Murderbot is like the security or investigator, I can't remember what, on the like cruise ship
I think
or the
that's
colony ship?
3, right?
3. I thought that part was so funny.
Was that 3?
Yeah, that's gonna be like
3
after.
or 4, I can't remember which one though.
Yeah, because Murderbot is impersonating the like security group
Yeah.
going in. Yeah, yeah, hiding out and like observing the the two guys who end up betraying the whole team. That's what you're thinking of?
No, it's like it's at the very beginning of 3 or 4, and it's like how Murderbot, like the ship they took to get to their next destination was like this colony ship, and the like
Oh, that
the
I'm pretty sure that's the beginning of 4.
is that the beginning
Uh,
of 4?
Yeah.
And like the colonists all like go to Murderbot to like solve all the problems, and it was like a good
Yeah,
exhibition of
yeah.
like faking being human while also like a frustrating experience for it. I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty funny.
Because then they get to this like abandoned station and Murderbot's like trying to figure out what happened to Mensa and everything and kind of like pieces together the news stories.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think we all kind of had different opinions, but like overall pretty high
I yeah,
ratings
I
across the
didn't
board. Yeah.
I by no means felt the series was getting worse and worse. Just if you had to rank them individually, if anything, it made me more and more excited for where this like larger plot with Gray Chris is going to go. And I do feel like um, Murderbot has kind of like become self-actualized at the end of this fourth
Mhm.
short story, and that they've kind of found who they are and are ready to like then continue on. Whereas a lot of novellas 1 or books 1 through 4 are more like self-discovery in that way. And so I'm excited for the future. I'm really excited to get into book 5.
Yeah, I
Um,
will say I'm into book 5 and so far I think it's the best one of the 4. I
Okay.
mean, obviously I'm not done with it, but I'm
That
really
long
liking
form
the beginning.
content.
Yeah. Yeah,
Put
exactly.
it
Yeah.
put a data point on the graph.
It's longer, so I love it.
um, so a meta question here. Do you guys think um that this was able to get popular? I can't remember. I mean, I know it was popular before, but with the rise of like ChatGPT and the current like kind of large language model stuff that we have going on in the cultural zeitgeist.
I was hearing about it like in 2018 and 2019, like fairly
Yeah,
popular then. So I personally don't think it's really connected to that.
but
Like I heard about it more than I have recently
yeah, I
since
think
the
that might be
advent.
true. But like when did it get like greenlit for like an Apple TV show?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see.
I mean, probably a year or two ago, since it seems like they're like actually somewhat far along with it. That means it must have been some time ago.
Because I know it made a stir in like our kind of corner of the internet
Hmm.
as it was coming out. But
2021 was
yeah,
when
okay.
she's the Martha Wells said it was in.
I don't know though,
potentially.
because none
Okay,
of
so
the
that's before the really large
none of
language
the
models
ideas
take off.
from the book series like really
Yeah.
connect with the recent rise in AI. Like I
Well,
know AI is like maybe more mainstream than it had been before, but it's like everyone kind of always had this whole idea of, you know, robots taking over the world and AI in the future, like blah blah blah. Like I don't, would
yeah.
you say that that is like more prevalent now? Maybe, but I don't know if that really like would affect the popularity of this book series.
Yeah, I don't really see a connection personally.
I
But
okay. I think I don't with those dates and stuff, I think that there isn't a connection, but I could see there being a larger focus on AI and AIs in science fiction and fantasy in general because of this. Not that you're right, it has always been a thing, but I think as people I don't, and again, this is all kind of speculating on where AI is going to go in the future. But I think as people get more and more used to interacting with AI in their lives, then it could spur kind of obviously injecting that into their own creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
yeah, I see
and
this
yeah,
that like
sorry.
the AI focus in this more being like more like along the lines of like free will and like what is how do you define sentience? Whereas I feel like recent AI developments are more uh
Of like this is artificial
this is a
intelligence
tool,
that you can actually use in your day to day, and it's not like
not a
as
person.
it's not as ambiguous as other AI ideas. Like ChatGPT is right here and you can use it. Like
Yeah.
that's kind
And
of the
it
Yeah,
recent.
but
and
there's
no
that
one was
whole
like, oh, ChatGPT is a person. You know, it's more like, oh, here's a tool that's gonna remove
no,
jobs. Like that
that's
was the
not
more.
no. There's that whole like thing with the Google
You
employee that
you believe ChatGPT is a person, Josh?
no.
Yeah, but that Google employee that wasn't with ChatGPT though. That was
It was
pre-ChatGPT.
yeah, it was a similar level of model though. It was like when like Google hadn't released their AI model, but it was probably around that level of like
Yeah, but
where
I feel
ChatGPT
like
was at.
that was before like the current AI craze. And that definitely that may have affected this. I don't know the timeline of that exactly, but I would see something more like that having effect on this
I
than ChatGPT or Sora or
Remind
something
me
like
what
that.
the Google employee story was.
he came out with this whole expose about how Google had made a he believed that Google had made a sentient AI and that he released some chat logs with it and some of it
It
was
passed his internal Turing test.
pretty much yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where like yeah, ChatGPT can like make you think it's alive, or it's sentient, especially if like, you know, safeguards were taken off of it. Or it could potentially, I don't know. But I think that a lot of people do have kind of like an eerie feeling about AI right now
Hmm.
and if it is sentient. I think that on like the more tech corner of the internet, especially like you being a programmer or like being in data science and data analytics and stuff, like yeah, that's where the conversation is at, is how can it be a tool to empower, or is it going to be, a tool that takes away jobs? Like that's more around what the conversation is. But I think like to like people that are just seeing it for the first time, I think that there is some sort of spookiness about it.
Sure.
Maybe. Yeah.
And yeah, there could be something to the effect of AI is more accepted, therefore Apple TV studios are like, we need an AI show, and here's a popular book series that checks that box.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
I
I
think
don't know.
if we see any sort of like chat GPT uh aspect to the adaptation, then I think yeah, they're at least trying to cash in on that craze. Which I could see them doing that. Like anyways, yeah.
Hmm.
That would be funny to see like a Sam Altman reference or something like that, like from 1,000 years ago, like
Yeah.
just some sort of, reference to
Or
current.
like yeah, or if just like bots in the background in general kind of like interface the same way. And yeah.
Yeah.
It's always interesting seeing adaptations of science fiction from years ago. And like this is relatively recent, but like that boom in AI happened after this series got popular. And so it'd be interesting to see how the TV adaptation that comes after that boom tries to like catch the source material up I feel like generally they try to do that, like catch it up to like current standards and technology rather than something like Dune. It's like, okay, this is basically an alternate universe, or like
Mhm.
Star Trek, you know what I mean? But like, I'm trying to think. I feel like iRobot, we were just speaking of iRobot, which is like adapting a book from decades ago, you know what I mean? Like the distance in years between original source material and the television adaptation is so large that they had to throw in like current tech standards, like that weren't even around to be futurized at the source. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Anyway,
it
so
does.
that'll be
it
interesting to
does.
see.
I'm trying to think of another example. I got nothing off the top of my head, but I know what you're talking about.
It's like
Yeah.
like cell phones. Like no one predicted cell phones in the 50s, you know what I mean? No one would have thought of like a personal computer, yeah, but not in this, like not in like the fashion or like consumer way that it has
Mhm.
been implemented. And so I feel like anytime there's a future show now, they have to have some sort of like mobile
Personal,
device.
yeah,
Yeah.
personal handheld device.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, kind of like on Upload. I don't know if you ever saw that on
I
Amazon
haven't seen
Prime.
that one. I want
They,
Yeah.
to.
yeah, they just go like that, and it pops up with like a little
Yeah.
display between their fingers like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
That
yeah, so
show
I
was
wonder if
okay
they
to
will.
start. Got kind of tapered off, but yeah.
We haven't finished the last season. It's a charming show, I think. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that has some funny AI moments in it too.
Yeah. Okay, let's pivot off this conversation and end
Yeah.
with a question of Murderbot and humanity. Like, what is your take? Is Murderbot human? Does it want to be human? How does it fit into the rest of society? Like, what is kind of the what's the word? What is the synthesis? Like, what is the series trying to say about humanity?
I That's hard. I First of all, the question I think I have an answer to confidently is I don't think Murderbot wants to be human. I don't think that's in its
Uh-huh.
like desires. I think it is fine being what it is, but I do think it wants to be accepted more than it expresses. I think it would prefer a society that accepted it as an individual the same
Yeah.
way an augmented human is considered an individual.
And I agree. I also feel like there's some like self-awareness of the difficulty of that. Like it almost I don't think Murderbot believes that is possible in the society it lives in. And
Yeah.
that really contributes to kind of an underlying sense of gloom in the character and
Anxiety.
a
Yeah.
yeah, and this kind of whole facade that it puts up. Like it really wants to it wants to connect with humans, so it tries to understand them. Hence, binging all the soap operas and conversations with Arch, trying to figure out how humans act and what makes up a human. But it doesn't really like want to be human because Murderbot likes being itself. But if Murderbot is itself, it knows that it has a very low chance of ever like being fully accepted. Therefore, there's this like self dissonance of who it wants to be and what it thinks is actually possible.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of describing like the internal conflict there. Like its its desires are further than its like rational mind will allow it to accept.
Which I think like on some level, obviously not quite as much as a single sec unit with a hacked governor module in the entire galaxy. But on some level, like this is the way that a lot of like minority groups feel in like
Yeah.
amongst humanity.
Yeah, it's a really human feeling. And going into your first question, like, is Murderbot human? I have a hard time just not defaulted to yes, it is. It's just a more restricted, like a more augmented human than like what is socially acceptable with who once had like the governing module. Like if you hacked an augmented human and threw a governing module on them, I would see no I don't know how they would be different from what we've been presented so far.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think
But
about that one?
then I would think that all sec units would be human just with a governor
Yeah, no, yeah,
module.
that's that, and yeah,
Okay.
that's how and I
Gotcha,
assume
gotcha.
that's like I assume it's like this arbitrary delineation, just like to make like for humanity, kind of like from Dr. Mensa's point of view, like yes, Murderbot is like human. But the standard society has created this arbitrary delineation between this level of augmentation is human, this level is not, even though I
Yeah.
think that, but I could be wrong. Like maybe more will come out in the world building to show like why, like maybe those are like the organic parts are not as predominant as I'm interpreting them to be.
Also, while he does have a lot of human emotions, he has a lot of other things that aren't human emotions or lacks a lot of human emotions. And I know that like that's a dangerous line to draw. Like if you don't have empathy, obviously you're still human or whatever. Like obviously if you have like psychopathy, is that the way? Or like if you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
that sounds right.
if you have like disorders like that where you lack basic human emotions, that doesn't
You're still
make
human.
you not human. You know, having said that, I think when you have something that may or may not be human and then lacks those attributes, then could that make a case for that not being human? You know,
I don't think so, because it's not a, if you find that same trait existing within someone who's clearly human, then that can't be a defining trait of humanity.
not a defining trait, but could be
But
like some level of
a
indicator.
characteristic.
Yeah, like
Oh, I don't think it
it's not
should
enough to
be.
rule it out, but it should be enough to like have it influence
Yeah, I
your
don't think it should, because
categorization.
you clearly have examples of humans with those traits. So
Yeah,
it's
sure.
not, it's like that's not mutually exclusive, so it shouldn't really weigh into like pushing things one way or another, in my opinion.
But then you kind of have it impossible to, you know, to
Yeah.
categorize what makes a human though, because you can
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
humans with like literally, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
You
yeah.
could just continue to expand what is humanity forever, basically.
Yeah. Or, I mean, the way I'm kind of thinking about it now is like, do they, yeah, do they have human DNA? Then they're human. And that's why I'm like, I think like my mind would shift on this. Right now, I'm imagining at least 50-50 human, like at like organic aspects, and not like
Well,
in
that
terms of biomass, but in
yeah, I
terms
was
of
gonna
like
say that makes
in
sense.
terms of the like the uh mental
Neurons,
aspect.
The
Yeah.
like,
cerebral nature.
Yeah, like where, like,
but then what happens if like a human gets like a GPU into like, well, if Neuralink
yeah, I
takes
don't know.
off and a human gets
I know
a
that I don't
GPU and
have
now
a,
can like do like way more mental calculations using like a GPU or CPU in their head. So
I would still
technically,
consider that human.
but technically they're
We gotta
like
ask
doing
Nolan.
more like
Yeah, we gotta ask
processing. Yeah.
Nolan.
Nolan from Neuralink.
Hashtag, yeah, shout out Nolan from Neuralink.
But you know what I mean? Like that doesn't seem like a great delineator either.
Well, and I don't. That's why I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
I don't have a hard line on it.
Hmm.
And I guess from my perspective on this, it seems like sec units are. It comes across as they are human first, who are then augmented into a sec unit, and so therefore they retain their humanity to me, rather than something that is like non-human first and then has like organic plugins. And even then, I might still consider it human. I don't
Yeah, it's
know.
just like if something starts as a robot and you place like a human brain into it that's hooked up to like an external, like hooked up to extra processing units. Like,
I think I would still consider it human. I would
yeah,
be,
I
yeah.
would probably too. But what happened if that same thing lacks any sort of human emotion?
Okay, so any sort of no human
Okay, well, some
emotion,
human, like it can feel pain or it can respond to like stimuli like a human would.
then I don't know how you would rule it out. Yeah. But I'm also of the opinion, in like in real world, I think if artificial intelligence reaches a point where it can pass any Turing test, and the only way for you to know that it is artificial intelligence is like finding it's like being shown the source code and like how it was created, then I don't understand why they should be treated differently than humans. Not that we'd classify them as human that way, but like in terms of like rights and things like that, like I don't see how we could treat
Yeah.
them any differently if we're not able to distinguish that. So, and I feel like that mentality is being applied is like influencing my identification of Murderbot's humanity in a way.
I guess a line for me, I know it's kind of gray, but I think of free will and sentience, right? Sentience as I can never pronounce that word correctly. I always feel like I'm
I
saying
think
wrong.
sentience and sentience
Yeah.
are both
Okay.
accepted.
I feel like that is if you have those traits, that is human. If you don't, not quite as much.
How do you define those traits though? Because you
Yeah,
could
I know.
those could
Yeah.
easily, like any way you define that, you could have something
You could have a lesser amount of free will,
mimic
but
mimic that to a way where it's indistinguishable.
right.
And then let
right.
alone all like the debates today, whether like free will is actually
The reason I'm
whether
laughing, Steven,
humans
is
actually have free will.
Jake and I had like a 3-hour debate about free will a few weeks ago.
No, I tried to have a debate
I've
on
fallen
it,
fallen into your
and
trap.
I tried to have a genuine debate on it, but I just kept getting like, no, I don't think any of those arguments are valid. And I
No,
was like,
no,
oh yeah,
no.
come on, like
Oh,
let's
come on.
explore the
We had
idea.
a. I feel like
No,
Ben was a little bit.
That
I feel
sounds like a
maybe
nice long form Fantology podcast, 3 hour
yeah.
content.
I'm not
Yeah.
knowledgeable enough on it. I just think the idea is interesting. And so I
we
wanted
should.
like some pushback so we could explore the ideas. And I was having to advocate more for a side that I don't have a solid opinion on.
You're like, come on, Josh, say this so I can argue this other point.
Yeah, say this so we can explore this together.
No, we had a good. Okay, I thought it was a good conversation, but apparently you didn't.
No,
Until
I think
now.
I think if you look back at that 3-hour conversation, the free will part lasted 30 minutes, and then we moved on to another topic for the rest.
Okay, well, fine. We had a 30-minute conversation about free will, and
That's pretty good.
So if by
Yeah.
by that definition, then nobody would be human. So we can't use that.
Yeah.
I guess in the Murderbot books that we just read, it really seems like Murderbot has free will, and therefore we would have to classify it as human.
In the way that
same
humans.
way in the way we say humans do, because the
It has the
thing I wanted
perception
to
of free will.
explore perception of free will, because the thing we wanted to explore is, and I think this
Do
is
we really have free will?
Well, I think this is this argument against free will is applicable here because, so the argument against free will that we were discussing earlier was humans can do what they want, and so you feel like you're expressing this free will, but you can't will what you want. So your desires are not free to you, and so you think you have these limitless options, but really you are programmed to want to do these things, and you are going to do them. And I think this applies to, like, that's that argument against free will. And I think this is relative to Murderbot, because generally with robots, you're like, no, they don't have free will. They're programmed to do that. You know what I mean? Like they're programmed to want to do this, so they do that. And so if you like put that mindset on like humanity's actions, like what is the difference really? We have these like biochemical reactions and like these innate instincts and desires that like all humans have, etc. You know what I mean? So
sure.
I think that's an
I
interesting
guess
way to discuss
to just bring this back.
Free will.
Yeah, to bring this back to Murderbot, it sounds like what you're saying is, in as much as humans are able to define what humanity is, we must also accept that Murderbot is human based off the account that we're getting in these books.
That's my stance. Yeah.
Okay.
For Murderbot. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. That was, I feel like we put some nice guardrails around that, and we have an agreement.
Nice.
And I think are we all three on agreement there that Murderbot is, or Josh, are you pushing back? Do you think Murderbot is not human?
No, I was just going to
according to our definition.
I was just going to argue just to argue with you, but I think it would be considered human. Yeah.
But then what's interesting then is like my main reasoning is like, oh, well, it's like the human element is already there, the organic element. But then you look at like Art and Mickey, are they
right,
not human in terms of biologically, but are they sentient in the same way? Like, are they? I feel like that's kind of what the story is showing us, is that there are more levels of sentience and like
there
personhood.
Are like varying levels of personhood, humanity.
That exists whether they have organic or non-organic makeup. But
Yeah,
Nice.
I think I opened this can of worms up by asking like what is the central thesis of the books, and I think that's a pretty fair definition. Yeah.
cool.
All right, so yeah, we enjoyed the books, and we are planning on continuing through 5, 6, and 7. If you like Pentology, you want to chat with us and let us know what humanity is, like we're up for whatever, you can hop on our Discord. Links are in the episode descriptions. And we've been doing monthly book clubs. So if you want to read a science fiction or fantasy book together with a small group of people and chat about it, we did Murderbot Diaries 1 through 4 and 6 earlier in March. And going into April, it looks like we're gonna go back and do The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Shauna Lawless, which we've actually already covered on the channel, but I'm looking forward to revisiting. So if you're interested in that, join our Discord and chat with us and make some new friends.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
All righty. See you later.